Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Everybody in the back? Okay, great. I'll just yell a little bit. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Brotz, and I'm just really excited to be able to be here with you all as the moderator for the 2024 Open Education Conference Student Panel. As a former student panelist, I am really honored to be able to be here with some phenomenal students about talking about the importance and the imperativeness of having open education in this moment in time. And open education has always and will always be imperative in all moments of time. But today I will be talking with our students about their experiences and their knowledge with open education. As a recent graduate student, I understand the importance and the power of student voices, experiences, knowledge, advice, and recommendations. So I hope that we can all take something away from these amazing students today. And I also want to thank you all for traveling to Providence for this panel and being with us all here today. So before we get started, I will do an overview introduction, but then we'll also have our students be able to introduce themselves. So we have Andrew Whitcomb, who is a former member of the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education. They are currently an MBA student at the University of Massachusetts Lowell with a concentration in managerial leadership. We can do a round of applause, yes. We have Nikki Nguyen, who is a student, who is on the Student Advisory Council for the Massachusetts Department of Higher Education, as well as a student segmental advisor, and is a voting board member for the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education. They are currently studying international relations and biochemistry at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. We have Mike Hannigan, who is studying farm and food systems at Greenfield Community College, where he currently serves as the college's student trustee. He is also a campaign organizer for MassPIRG, where he is working on initiatives related to food insecurity, environmental advocacy, and the campaign on affordable textbooks. And then we have Jennifer Crowell, who is currently studying political science and sociology at Eastern Connecticut State University. So with that, we'll start so they can all introduce themselves though real quickly, and then we'll get into questions. So Jennifer, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for having me today. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you all today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days and your busy schedules to hear students and meeting us where we can have this open conversation. Well, again, my name is Jennifer Crowell. I'm a student at Eastern Connecticut State University. Go Warriors. And I am studying political science and sociology with also a minor in pre-law. I have the honor to serve as the National Council Chair for College Democrats of America. I've also led the fight on automatic textbook billing in Connecticut. Not so long ago, Eastern Connecticut State University was hit with a kind of a deal that was brought from our chancellor, and he brought it with the Board of Regents, and they were saying, you know what, Barnes & Noble, we can charge $500 for each semester for students. Did not sit right with me at all, and that did not sit right with a lot of students, and almost over 1,300 students joined the fight with that. We had a great time and a fun time making sure that we organized students to come to this Board of Regents meeting where they were going to take this vote. Every student that came to speak was in against this automatic textbook billing. It was inspiring to see, and this ended up coming to fruition because Board of Regents ultimately was in favor of the students, and they kind of passed on the vote, which was kind of big news for us because the Board of Regents typically has one way of thinking, and as we all may know, with our own Board of Regents or Board of Trustees or whatever it may be, but yeah, that's kind of how I got involved, and it's been a great experience ever since.
And you could just go down the line.
My name is Andrew Whitcomb. I am from Saugus, Massachusetts. I just finished my undergraduate a couple of months ago at UMass Lowell, and I am on track to finish my master's. God save the Queen. I haven't finished yet. I'm set to finish my master's a little bit before Christmas. I started getting involved in open educational resources when I saw how much it could save students. There's a quick anecdote I like to share. We have a chemistry professor at UMass Lowell who, I think he was the chair of the department, worked tirelessly to convert the entire curriculum to a no-cost option for the students, just for the generic chemistry classes that most students take. In the first year and a half, it saved $200,000 that would have gone towards textbook costs for every student that has to take that class. You know, I'm a low-income, proud first-generation student. How many first-gen people we got in the house here? There we go. You know, I'm also a quadruplet. Well, it's great until you think that all four of us wanted to go to college at the same time. So that kind of pointed me in the direction of cost savings. And the other thing, and I'm sure we'll get into it in a bit later, is, you know, we approve this through the Faculty Senate at UMass Lowell is approving course markings for low-income classes. Now, I will say, it pissed off a lot of the teachers that didn't want to convert their courses because nobody took the classes. But all those students that were in the same situation as me that really didn't have the extra $200 lying around, 150 bucks, whatever it was, we all leaned into the low-cost options.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Nikki Nguyen. I'm a first-generation college student in my family, and I go to UMass Boston. I'm double majoring in international relations and biochemistry. As our moderator has mentioned, I'm the chairperson for Student Advisory Council to the Department of Higher Ed. I oversee all the student trustees and SGA presidents from the Commonwealth of Mass. And we set a dialogue to the Board of Higher Education on what we believe what student success is. And to the Board of Higher Ed, student success is very different from how we as students see that. How I got into OER is I was a vice chair for 4 terms on the council, and I met Dr. Bob Awkward, who's in the audience over there. And he mentioned about OER, the importance of OER. And ever since then, before I transferred to UMass Boston, I was actually the student trustee for Bunker Hill Community College. So a lot of the work I did was at the community college level, and we were able to expand OER course options for our students from, I believe it was like 17 to 50, don't quote me on it, but like 17 to like 50 something courses available. So it was nice seeing how the passion of what our OER community has been doing and seeing that quantitative measure actually speak for itself. It was really nice seeing that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Hannigan, and I'm the student trustee at Greenfield Community College. And how I got involved in OER is when I was elected student trustee, I had the pleasure of serving on the Student Advisory Council with Nikki and Andrew. And the first meeting I went to, actually, Dr. Awkward spoke about OER. And being a non-traditional student coming back to education, I didn't really know anything about the situation with textbooks. And I learned a lot from Dr. Awkward speaking. And after that, I realized that my state rep in Amherst, Mass, where UMass is, had a bill that they're working on to establish a trust fund for Massachusetts would set aside a fund where money could go towards open education resources. And so I started working on that because after hearing about it in the Student Advisory Council and that being my hometown rep, I started working on that bill, getting signatures to help get that passed. And I ended up doing that through MassPIRG. And through MassPIRG, I worked on textbooks as an internship with students from all over the country all through last year. And eventually that led to now where I'm a campus organizer at MassPIRG. So I'm working on 3 different college campuses, getting other students involved in the fight for OER and really the fight against automated billing, and trying to promote student choice and student advocacy in the field of OER. So thanks.
Well, thank you both. Thank you all so much for introducing yourself and giving people some more insight into your experience and how you got involved into Open Ed. And so we're going to start out with just a question, and we'll start with Nikki. And the question is, how has access to open education resources impacted your academic performance, or have you seen it impact others?
Oh, okay. So as an adult learner, so I've been in college for a while now. So OER has really helped me because, especially through OpenStax, a lot of the materials that professors have shared, sometimes it can be a little bit too advanced for me. So going to OER and just seeing the different languages being simplified, it has really helped me and a lot of students. Especially as an adult learner. Over the summer, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD and autism. So knowing that I have a disability at the age of 27 as an adult learner, a lot of things has changed for me. My learning styles has changed. How I understand the material has changed a lot for me as well. So OER has really helped me, not just in savings costs, but also just being able to understand the content for all levels. I think one of the challenges, especially for professors that achieve in their doctorate degree, is that they have been in that profession for so long that when they become a professor to teach to that class, sometimes their language can be very advanced for students. So especially having that equitable mindset of actually being able to explain at the doctorate level, I believe that an educator should also be able to explain at the elementary level to support all learners.
Thank you. And whoever wants to go next.
I can jump in here. So I say OER, it really offered that alternative that a lot of students needed that alleviates that financial burden. You can see it throughout any university, any college you go to. Students are facing a tough issue with going to college because it's too expensive. We know this from any of these students. I know a lot of students can agree with me on this one, is we're paying for tuition, we're paying for housing, we're doing this all without either we have a part-time job that we need to have because we can't simply afford it without, or we're so busy with school. How am I supposed to make money on top of this? So, having OER as an alternative where students don't have to worry about the cost of textbooks, such a kind of a simple concept you would think to a lot of people is that, obviously I'm going to pay for this class. You think, oh yeah, the textbook would be included because I'm paying over $1,000 for just one class. That simply is not the case in a lot of schools. So I personally really thank OER and the OpenStax and everyone that has been, fighting for this and using this platform that they may have as a professor or faculty member, whomever you are. I just want to say thank you to them. Also, just like, during my fight against automatic textbook billing, students shared stories about how OER really impacted their response or their kind of this fight that they needed to have with the automatic textbook billing. They were like, you know what, if I didn't have OER, if I was getting automatically billed for my textbooks, I simply would not be able to afford these classes. I would have to simply drop out. Not too far away. I tell this story all the time when I'm able. My roommate, she had to drop out because it was too damn expensive. I'm sorry for the swearing, but it simply is.
We like passion here. Don't worry about it.
Okay. No, yeah. But so unfortunately she had to drop out, but now she's doing great. She has a job. She's making sure that she can pay off those expensive loans, and then she's going to go right back to school. And I'm really so proud of her and all the compliments that she has been doing. So I just want to say, thank you for everyone who has supported OER since till now, and I hope we have many, many more like this.
Andrew, why don't you go?
It's hard to think about how it hasn't impacted me directly. Obviously, these two incredible people sitting beside me cover the obvious financial stuff, but there's the sort of subconscious aspect towards just not having those financial burdens. I mean, there's a question we got coming up here that I look forward to talking about. Is that discusses, how do you get students involved? Well, all the ones that really want to be involved have their schedules full of other things. When I'm not worrying about affording college or my master's degree or my law school applications that I have been procrastinating for the last 6 months, there's something else that's going on in my life. I've got 3 siblings. I've got my mother. We've got, other things to think about. And that's reality for most students that I know. And I'm sure it was reality for most of you when you were going through school. So, when you move forward with an academic plan, any form of curriculum advancement, something like that, you have to look, I guess the word is holistically now. These students aren't just coming in and sitting down and thinking about your class, right? When they leave, they're not going to go, oh, great, I've got 3 hours worth of homework and I can't wait for it. Well, they've got 4 other classes that have nothing to do with you, not to mention jobs and anything else. That's where I'd put it. That's where it's benefited me the most, is it takes one less thing out of my head. Even if it's only $100 for one class, it's exactly that,
Yeah, so I have a unique perspective on this, being a student that came back to higher ed through the Mass Reconnect program, which is a program that enabled me to go to community college for free because I didn't have a degree. So textbooks were paid for me, but any class that had OER, any class that I found a used textbook for, any class that I was able to, find a way to get a cheaper option, I got that money back in a check that was, I got at the end of the semester, and that money helped me buy gas, buy food. So even if the textbooks are covered, that's not an argument against OER, because that money is going, if there's been some talk now that community college is free in Massachusetts for everyone, to going to automated billing model. But that would just take that money away from the students who know how to spend it best, and it would go straight from the state to textbook companies. So even if, it's more than just an affordability issue. It's really about giving students choice, what to spend the money on. And, if we go to that model and I don't get that check anymore, it goes straight from the state to the textbook companies, I don't think that's fair. I think I should have a choice of where to spend that money on. And I think that money is much better served in the hands of students than in the hands of the textbook companies. So that's my perspective as somebody who maybe has had a different experience with OER and not having to swallow the burden of the textbook costs, but still benefits from the choice and the freedom to make a decision. So.
Thank you all so much for answering that question. And going back to what Andrew was talking about, how do we engage students when there are more pressing issues on their plate? And should we engage them? And Andrew, you can start.
I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this, and I'm from the North Shore and I got a bit of a big mouth, so I'm just going to say it. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's multiple wars in multiple parts of the world. There's students on both sides of the Israel-Palestine issue that are affected either directly or indirectly. There's upticks in anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim sentiment, homophobia, transphobia, different things. I saw this when I was on the board of higher ed. There were protests at UMass Amherst, in Lowell. There was protests all over the country. So when a student decides they want to get involved in something, one, there's a good chance they don't have a lot of time to get involved in something like this. You get the question of, here's a bunch of great ideas, who gets to run with the torch, right? And I've sat in on a lot of those meetings. It's not that the students don't want to be the ones doing the legwork, it's that they don't have the time. Even getting to know some of these folks a little better today, I can say pretty confidently we all spent our undergrads pretty busy. I haven't met a student that wouldn't want a cheaper textbook. I hadn't met a student that, well, listen, I make a pretty good point. I have yet to meet a student that wouldn't want to cut costs when they get a chance, that wouldn't sign their name on a dotted line if a letter was going to the chancellor that could make a difference. But the other side of that is having an administration, and I didn't run into this at UMass at all, but there are plenty of schools that do, where they don't really listen. You have a meeting with the director of whatever it's supposed to be, or the dean of something, and you leave the meeting like nothing happened. That happens a lot more than I realized when I first got involved. And I'm lucky I didn't run into that kind of thing.
Yeah, so being a campus organizer, I'm working with people on the ground doing this, and through MassPerg, I had the opportunity to go to DC and talk to lawmakers about the textbook issue. And I think it's really critical that we have students involved, because when I went to DC, we were meeting with lawmakers, giving student perspective on OER and automated billing. And the textbook lobbyists had just been there talking to the same representatives, and they had told them that students love inclusive access, how great it is. And, you know, that these people from the offices told me that that just happened. So we were able to come as students and tell them that's not the case. And without students being involved, they're not hearing the other side. They're only hearing one side of the issue. So it's really crucial. And the way that I got more passionate about OER and textbooks is really tying it into food insecurity, because that's what I've been working on mostly. But it's students have a fixed income. They only have a certain amount of money to spend. If that money is going to textbooks, that's money that's going away from food. That's money that's going away from rent, going away from all the other issues. So really just trying to convey to students that the textbooks is food insecurity. It is the same issue. It's the same pot of money that you have to pay for all the expenses you have, and that it's an equity issue too. That doesn't affect everybody in the same way. So when you really talk about fairness, that's a good way to, and tie it into food insecurity. That's a really good way to get students to understand how critical OER is, and how much textbooks affects everybody that's in higher ed right now. So.
I can jump in. Oh, unless you wanted to go, or?
Sorry, I was just wondering if you could just repeat.
Yeah, of course. So the question is, how do we engage students when there are more pressing issues on their plate? And should we engage them?
Yeah. So I think it's important, it's important, yes, but it's also necessary. Students need to realize that this isn't an issue that's going to affect them. But how do we do that? How am I going to tell a student that has to make sure that they can pay their rent on time? Well, oh yes, you also need to make sure that your government doesn't raise your tuition or raise your cost of just affording a textbook. And I agree with all these sentiments that were stated before me. It is hard. It is hard getting students involved, but one way that I found when I was organizing and making sure that students knew how to get involved, even if it was just a simple signature, is I met them where they are. I went to their classrooms. I said, here's what's going on. Thank you, professor, for giving me the time of day. But here, students, here's what's going on. You're getting charged more for your tuition. You're getting less opportunities since we're getting budget cuts. And also, the school wants to charge you automatically for your textbooks. They said, all right, well, I don't like that because I can barely afford the tuition now. What the heck's going on? And so, it was really easy to get students involved that way. Every time I get to talk to a student, I make sure to bring up, yeah, last semester, we almost got charged automatically for our textbooks, and that would have been detrimental. Also, did you know our tuition was going up 5%? Yeah, here's how you can get involved. And, I think it's great that, if you're having these meetings, you're having these set times, and there's a few students that can make those, yes, but there's a lot of students who have to make it to their job on time. There's a lot of students who don't really have the luxury of spending an hour sitting in a meeting and then, oh yes, I can go and talk to a few students that day. So I think being cognizant of that is really important. So definitely meeting students where they are. That's how I got involved, is they said, you know what, let me just talk to them. My advisor and a professor, they just started talking to me. They're like, here's what's going on. Here's what's happening. And here's how you can get involved. And I never gave up since.
I really just want to really highlight what everyone was mentioning. So to really get students involved, you would really, like Jennifer's mentioned, you really have to understand what does student success mean to the student and what are the hindrances to student success. So Mike was mentioning about basic needs. So if we think about like the Maslow hierarchy system, basic needs has to be met in order to advance for anything higher for themselves, right? So honestly, for students, I would really highlight in your positions, like empower your positions to be creative and like do some networking, have collaborations with different departments, tabling. A lot of the students don't know about OER because of the foundational work. What is the foundations of OER? What do we know about OER? And then from that foundations and the core values of OER, how can we implement commitment and accountability to it? One of the challenges that I continuously see through the OER work is that there's like a big passion for it and everyone's all like, yes, let's do it. But then all of a sudden the commitment starts going down a little bit each week, each year, because everyone's busy. Students are busy.
There's a midterm.
Midterm, yep, exactly, midterm, and there's a lot of aspirations that we're all working towards too, right? So really use your positions of your leadership, whether it's in school, at the state level, in the community, and really bring that forward to the people and like meet with them halfway to talk about it. And then from there, through those, like when you make a student feel heard about their struggles, they're more likely to want to come and sit on the meeting. And then also being able to want to engage and actually implement that. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to be an OER outreach ambassador at the state level. So every public college and university had their OER ambassadors, and we would meet monthly, sometimes weekly, depending on the issues, to talk about what's going on. And then, coming up with ways of being creative, like, okay, can we get that message to the State House? Can we get that message to the governor? So having that commitment and knowing your resources and having the collaboration, that's some of the only few ways to actually get students to become more engaged. When you have them understand how OER can affect them, especially in the long run, especially put it in the equitable mindset of adult learner, someone that struggles with a disability, early college students, for high school students, right? Make sure you start early, be committed to it, and be knowledgeable where you're able to explain the tough questions to those people and having those counter arguments as well.
Thank you all for answering that. That really resonated, with my experiences in higher education. And I definitely want to underscore what the students have said of, regardless of the position you have, whether you're faculty or administrators or librarians, finding alternative ways to meet students where they're at can really be a game changer, because a lot of decisions are often made in student governments or at advisory boards when most students don't have the opportunity to go to those meetings. And so finding alternative ways to meet students are really impactful. So I really appreciate you all talking about that. So we have about 9 minutes left. And so I want to kind of figure out a question that can maybe wrap up what we've done up here and then leave it to the audience. And so, as cliche as it may be, why do we need open education in this moment? And you can take that as whatever that may mean to yourself, but whoever wants to start.
I can start if that's okay. I think that open education is it's a fundamental right. These are things that students should be able to have access to, we've seen book bannings across the states, and it's just so discouraging to see that, because these are our rights. This is how we learn. If you're going to make me pay for a book and that's going to help me how to learn, it's just not fair.
That's a great point, actually. They're getting rid of books and then projecting their books onto us. I didn't.
Yeah. Do you think about that? Yeah. Florida's weird. You didn't hear from me. My bad. But yeah, I think it's a public good. It's not a luxury. This is not something that is so high up and only the select few get to read a book or two. And not in this day and age, not anymore.
At the same time, there are always going to be classes that, and this goes up as you get further into your college degree and further into your fields, where you really can't expect that to be a free textbook, or it's going to take somebody a very long time and a lot of effort to make a textbook like this. But like I said earlier, a class like chemistry that has been taught at the university for decades that most students have to take, say, I hate to break it to you, you don't need a college writing 2 textbook. You know, those are the courses I think we could save the most money for the most students. Once you get further in and you're taking advanced history classes for your, you know, different history study to your, government classes and things, you get specific, you get complicated. But for the generic classes, for the introductory classes, if everybody's sitting at the same table, why are we all opening different books?
Sure. So my perspective, being a community college student, and now that Massachusetts has made community college free for everyone, we're having a lot of people that are coming back to higher ed that have had long absences. So I've heard a lot of stories of students coming back, getting some access code, having to register 3 accounts, not getting the book when the class starts and falling behind and getting frustrated, saying, maybe I can't do college, maybe college isn't for me. And if they had OER, it would have been just a simple process. They'd have a free textbook, like easily available to them. So I think that's one of the things I think about is when we try to engage more people in higher education, having it be as simple as possible, is the barriers being as low as possible, having it be free really just helps more people take advantage of higher ed. And as somebody that came back to school later in life, and now a lot of people are having the opportunity due to community college being free, that's something I think about. And so that's why I think it's crucial that we take advantage of OER, promote it as much as possible, just to make it fair for people that have been kind of cast aside from higher ed, getting them back in, making it easy as possible, making it as affordable as possible. And that's how I think it'll help grow the economy, get more people with higher degrees. And it just really works. It's best for everybody. It helps everybody. So the arguments against it, I think, are just convenience. And a lot of times, you're paying for that convenience, and it's being brought on the backs of students when you're reducing their choice. So is it really convenient? Who is it convenient for? That's what my thought when people talk about automated billing and the convenience of it.
So to me, OER is equity, and equity is very different from equality. And I really hope everybody in this room knows what the term equity means. It's being able to find the right shoe for that particular individual, for them to be able to succeed, especially in higher education, right? So a lot of people tend to say knowledge is power, but for me, my personal opinion with OER is that OER gives you wisdom so that you're able to have knowledge and comprehension and the commitment to be able to continue the fight for OER. So when we talk about having the equitable mindset and how OER fits for everybody, especially when Mike was mentioning about free community college launch that recently just launched in Massachusetts, that's what equity means to me. And that's where OER, we should all have accessibility to all the knowledge that we can. That's more than just finding stuff on Google. It's about finding published work that is official and then being able to have the right knowledge to be able to enact that wisdom so that we can get to the next stage of life where we need to be.
Thank you all so much. And I think right now, I think it would be a good time to get into Q&As. I want to just give a little bit extra time with that. And so how that's going to go is we're going to have obviously in-person questions, but then we also have online folks. And so we're going to alternate between those two. So just please be patient. So please ask questions. I do have some prepared, but I don't want to have to use them. So, so whoever has a question, just raise your hand and we'll get to you as quickly as possible. Oh, perfect. See, thank you. This side, we need to work better. Okay. Let's see here.
We're going to start with an online question as Annika runs across the room. So we have one question on online. Beyond cost savings, how do you as students see the benefits of the open licensing in terms of being able to retain and even modify/create materials? Do you use this in your advocacy?
I might have missed a couple of the words, but I understand the general thought behind the question. So one of the things I didn't get to talk about is a biology professor at our college was able to write a textbook that focused on the local insects and like the stuff that was found in our region, rather than having the textbook be broad and just talk about general issues. She was able to write a specific textbook that applies to our region and be able to teach to what the people were experiencing outside. So I really think that enhanced that class. And I think that having the textbooks be more catered to the region and to exactly what the professor is trying to teach really just makes it overall more engaging educational experience. And anytime that I think a professor writes their own textbook, it's going to be more effective, obviously, than using teaching to some type of boilerplate textbook that they're not as passionate about. So,
Right.
and I haven't talked about that much in my advocacy because I feel there's so much to textbooks to get down to that level. I think it's kind of hard to try to explain that, but I do think that is something I probably should talk to more about. But the total textbook issue is so complicated, and I think by design to make it complicated, so it's really hard to get down into the weeds sometimes because just getting through all the logistics is so difficult. But I do think that's something I should probably focus more on about is like the actual benefits of when you're using OER resources, how they can be catered specifically to the classes and make it a more engaging experience for the student.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I want to recognize Elizabeth in particular for really the long-term and deep involvement that you've had with open education. And also just to say, the nature of student advocacy is that students graduate and move on, and at a community college that might be as quick as a year or two. And so I was wondering if any of you have thoughts about continuity in, with respect to that kind of student turnover that's just so expected with the nature of student advocacy, and if there are examples of things that you've done to make sure that the next bunch of students coming up where the work doesn't get lost.
I can take this one. I know in my case, I have some folks under my belt who've kind of been following me that I identify these students early. I identify them like this is my senior year. So, it's my last year and I want to make sure that there's students that will be able to continue the fight that I've led on. And identifying those students as early as you can is so important. If you see that freshman that's taking that extra step, or you see that sophomore that's taking the extra step in your classes, be like, hey, like, would this interest you? Even if you already have a student leader, I know, I've been kind of like bringing them along and being like, this is what's going on. This is how you get some change done. Here's the state representative you need to talk to. Here's the state senator you need to talk to. And making sure that they have those connections like I do now. And then just identifying those leaders early. And I think it's really important. And then also makes my job a lot easier because then I have other leaders who can help with this fight.
Absolutely. The thing this is gonna sound like I'm puffing up my ego here, but my brother is a student at the same business school that I just graduated from. And a couple of weeks ago, they took a student profile of me off of the wall in the dean's office and they replaced it with somebody else. And he said, I hadn't been up there for a year or so. And he said, are you upset they took your picture down? I said, no. They take my picture down so they can put somebody else's picture up. When you matriculate out as a student leader, it's sad at the beginning, and I do miss a lot of those folks at UMass and a lot of the crowd I got to get to know, but there's somebody in line after me, and there's somebody in line after him, and these issues aren't just relative to the 4 years I spent in college, or I guess 5 now. It seeps through. I graduated, guess what? OER isn't fixed. There's still issues facing campus that I mentioned at the top of this thing. And I always feel that those students will poke their heads up. The train keeps chugging,
I can add a little bit more to that. Continuity really starts with yourself as a leader. So if you know that you're going to matriculate or you're going to move forward to the next stage of your life, I believe that as a leader, you should be able to make sure that you leave a legacy behind where you're able to set them up for success. So as Jennifer was mentioning, starting early as you can, but also planting the seeds in your students' heads, especially at like the SGA level and like different like student-led coalitions, putting that seed in their head of thought of like, how are you going to ensure that the next administration is going to move forward and actually continue with OER? Like, how are you gonna be able to connect and network with them on that? So really, like, it really starts with ourselves and just understanding that OER is not just an individual thing, it's more of a collective whole. So being able to continue to push forwards with that starts with ourselves.
Leaving them a toolkit.
Yeah, toolkit, and just being able to sit with them and take that time to just explain to them of like, this is what we would like for you to do. However, being able to engage in them in a way where, like, again, bringing back that equitable perspective of what's considered student success to that leader, that will really help them understand of how OER is not just a temporary thing, it's a permanent thing.
Thank you. Do we have another question online?
How do you feel about students being part of creating open textbooks with faculty?
That's something I actually haven't considered. I know we have in Massachusetts, we have student councils that are dedicated. I know you sat on one with Dr. Awkward. You know, there's a student coalition of OER sort of representatives for different parts of the state and the different colleges, but I never considered having them actually participate in building a textbook.
I've heard some professors have talked about wanting to have work study students help with something like that. But we talk about you know, how busy students are, and if you find the right student that has time and a you know, desire to do that, I think it's awesome. But you know, I
don't want to write an essay and have them make a textbook.
yeah, it's we talk about getting how hard it is to get students involved. So if you can find a student that wants to write the textbook, then yeah, like I say, that's a great resource to have. So.
That's really creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hi, my name is Bob, and before I get to my question, just say it is awesome that you guys are here because we hear from each other all week long, and it's great. We all love it. We live and breathe it. But to hear about this from a student's perspective is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much. Look, you got a packed house. So that's the evidence I'm using there. But my question is this. A little contrary to what I maybe just said, where is open education failing you as a student? Where is it not meeting the challenges that you need it to address?
I can go with that. Respectively, OER has not done a good job in setting the pillar of letting people know the core foundations of OER. When you go to a student or a faculty member or a professor in general, you tell them, hey, have you heard of OER? Most of the time they're gonna say, what's OER? And, you know, I've been like working on this field for a couple years now. When I go up to students and tell them, oh, I'm going to an OER conference, they're like, what's OER? I think that's where we as a community have failed, where we're not letting people know what OER is. And in order to educate the people what OER is, commitment, tabling, collaboration, continuous social media, and just communications, things like that, like going back to the core foundations of like, okay, what will help students understand the basics of OER? I think that's where we have failed a lot of our current and prospective students.
I mean, and then there's sort of the academic side of that question, right? I don't want to use the phrase cutting corners because that makes it sound like OER isn't to the same extent that a you know, $200 textbook is. But I think one of the things that a lot of university administrators are sort of afraid of is you go to a cheap option, you go to a free option, and suddenly it's like the students aren't going to learn anything. So I think there's some I think that's ridiculous, but I think there's some education that needs to happen on both sides. We're going to change from the textbook we've been using for decades, given to us by a company that gave the university a lot of money a long time ago. Fine. This is what we're going to replace it with. This is why this is a better option. Not only is it more affordable, but it's the same sort of core 5, 6 different things that we need to learn for the chemistry class or the marketing class. And here's where this is going to set us apart from the other schools and why our students are going to be better off with this program rather than the dusty old textbook.
I'll just say one thing I heard from some students that were taking a history class that used OER, and the class was heavily based around primary sources. And some of that stuff could be hard to access for students. So if we're going to use something that's written, in throughout history, like a primary document, that's a primary source, I think sometimes that can be challenging for students today to really digest that information, where a textbook might, do a better job of kind of shifting the language around so it's more understandable. So I think that sometimes if we're using primary sources, just really making sure the students have an understanding what they're reading, not just expecting them to be able to, pick up the language from hundreds of years ago and be able to really understand what they're supposed to get out of it. So that's one thing I've heard some students complain about. A class that offered OER was a history class that was all heavily based on primary sources, and they were struggling with just interpreting some of that information. So.
Do we have another online question?
Yes, so we have one. Many students all over the world fear daily for their families' lives due to ongoing crises. How can we discuss educational improvements when basic safety is at risk? How does the panel suggest pursuing inclusive, equitable reforms while still addressing these pressing realities?
Yeah, can I?
Could you possibly repeat the question?
No problem. Many students all over the world fear daily for their families' lives due to ongoing crises. How can we discuss educational improvements when basic safety is at risk? How does the panel suggest pursuing inclusive, equitable reforms while still addressing these pressing realities?
I mean, the most honest answer I can give there is cut the students some slack once in a while. My mother, God bless her, is 60 years old, 61, is working on her undergrad degree right now. The problem is she's doing a lot of this work online. Now, this is going to come as no shock to people in this room, but Blackboard and these other programs weren't designed for a 60-year-old woman that hasn't been to school in 40 years. So when somebody in her state, or say somebody like me that has ADHD or depression or anxiety or something like that, says, listen, I'm having some trouble figuring out how to use this platform or how to access these materials or whatever it is. I actually had one of her two teachers say to her last week, talk to your son, he'll know how to do it. Well, lucky for you, I did the class 2 years ago. But what do you say to a parent that doesn't have a son at home that just happened to be in the same field as her, right? When you want these students to grow and adapt and mature, no matter what age they are, everybody sort of does their own struggles. My mother is the strongest person I've ever met in my life, and she gets faced with an accounting problem, and it's like it gives her a panic attack sometimes. It's just how it is. She's not really conditioned is the wrong word, but she's not set up the way I was set up because I grew up using computers. And it's not just that, it's everybody's in their own situation. And no matter what path OERs take or learning resources take, there needs to be a certain amount of meeting students on their level. And when you don't get that from a faculty or from an administrator, it can be kind of cold, especially because everybody that goes to college wants to fit in like it's family.
Yeah, I just want to really highlight what Andrew was mentioning, like, especially, being diagnosed with a disability over the summer. I'm going through a stage of learning to unlearn what I thought worked for me. And I think that's why I really love OER, is because it's meant to help you understand at the basic level to the best of their abilities. And I think all of us in this room and even online right now, if you can just remember, like, everyone's going through a season of learning to unlearn what they thought they already knew. I think that'll be a really great, mindset to really consider, so that we're able to understand the challenges of what everyone's going through.
Yeah, I'll just briefly say, that students are affected by the outside world, what's going on, same as everyone else. And then they have the added burden of school. So, just like safety issues, stuff that's going on in the world, all that stuff affects students. So reducing the cost of their textbooks is just one less thing they have to worry about. So they have more energy to focus on everything else in the world. So When it comes to OER, it's just like, that's just one less thing the students won't be worried about if they don't have to worry about affording a $300 textbook.
Also, I just want to add, like, I know during a tough time that I had, during school, maybe I wasn't doing as well in one of my classes, right? But it wasn't because I didn't want to do well. Like I strive for A's all across the board every time. But sometimes it's just like outside factors that, as a professor, you might not know what's going on. You might be like, oh, that student's a slacker. They never show up to class. But it also might be on the other side where, okay, they're showing up not to class because they have to take care of their grandmother, or if they have to take care of their brother, or whatever it may be. And so just kind of like understanding that, maybe give them some grace sometimes. Like cut the slack, but also give them some grace. I like doing that a lot. Not everyone is having a great day all the time. And sometimes when a student gets frustrated or they're not doing well in a class, it's not because they're mad at you or they are, not wanting to do well in your class. It's because they simply are dealing with other things that are more important to their personal life. So just wanted to add that in there.
That is I think we have one quick question left.
Since we started a little bit late, we can actually probably go on till 2:20, just so everyone is aware. So we can take on a couple more questions.
Yes. We have an in-person question?
Thank you. In your experience, what is the most effective way that someone who's an OER champion on a campus to reach out and kind of do that outreach to the students who might be interested? If you have more than one idea, that's great too. Thanks.
We used to have a joke at UMass Lowell. The director of student activities would say to me, the only thing we don't have the power to do is get students to open their email. Meeting students where they are, as we touched on it earlier, that's the best way I can respond to that. It's students may not have the time to go to a meeting at 5:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday because they've just spent a few hours in class and they have to get home to cook dinner or to feed their family or to work. Go into the classroom, take 10 minutes out of the professor's time, find a professor that likes you, but go into the classroom and chat with them then, and then say at the end, listen, here's my card. What can we do to make a course like this run smoother for you, resources wise?
I also think like one-on-one time with us, if you have a particular student that you think would be good for this type of thing, meeting them one-on-one, and then also maybe you're not meeting with them one-on-one just because maybe it's happenstance. Maybe they come to your office hours one time and they're like, hey, professor, I need help with this project. And then you ask, oh, well, this is what I do. So when I try to get a student to go and vote, because voting is very important, there's election. I don't know if you heard. But like I'll be like, all right, so what's an issue you care about? And then they'll be like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, tuition's kind of expensive and McDonald's is getting way too expensive nowadays and I can't even afford it. I can't afford a burger. I'm like, you want to know why? Like, here, let's go through. Like, let me like connect with you on this one specific issue that you care about, even if it's the burger price of McDonald's, right? Like, and then kind of bringing that to maybe like a larger thing where like, also like there's these other things that are getting a little too expensive and this might be why you can't afford your burger at McDonald's. They're charging you for your textbooks that cost $0 or maybe $20 depending on where you're getting it. But like just making sure that students are aware that this affects them, even if it's not like, because if you say, okay, there's automatic textbook billing here, and they're like, okay, great. I don't know what that means, right? That's a very like, I'm sorry, but that's what I get. I'm like, okay, great. Like nods and shakes their head and says, yeah, that's great. But kind of like coming down to where they are, like what's important to them, and then connecting it to the larger picture.
I know that we mentioned a lot about like meeting students at their level, but coming from like an equitable mindset, think about outreach to all the stakeholders that are affected by higher education, board of trustees, parents, students, even just like even legislators, just talking to them about it. really bring that OER knowledge to them and out of all different like stakeholders' perspective, I truly believe that we will be able to make that effective change of increasing more accessibility in OER. I don't know why, but like one of the things I'm really thinking, like an idea just keeps like nudging my mind is like reaching out to your town libraries. You know, like we have libraries at our campuses, but then outreach to libraries and other different campuses, like not campuses, but like different towns and cities. And then try and make that collaboration of like, hey, like, does your community know what OER is? And how can someone that may not be ready for college yet can still want to get ahead and still gain further understanding? So having that collaboration and just having that perspective of like, okay, how can we reach OER to all different perspectives of a stakeholder? That'll be really effective.
I'd say attending student senate meetings, any student organizations, like getting involved with them, making sure they know who you are and that you're working on OER. And at Greenfield Community College, I know that our librarian, Tim, is on the board of the state and works on OER. So I know him. I know that he's come to student senate meetings and talked about OER. So before I came here today, I went and talked to him, asked him questions about what's going on with OER. And so just so because I know who's working on OER, it's helpful for me that I know he has open door. I can come talk to him anytime about it. And I will say that students do appreciate the people that are working on OER. It's like word of mouth. Everybody talks about, maybe they're not saying it to the people that are doing the work, but to students talk amongst themselves, they know who's using OER, they do appreciate it. And I think that's something as students we need to do a better job of, is making sure that people that are working in OER know how much students do appreciate it, because they do talk among themselves, and I do hear them say how much they appreciate it. So
Thank you all so much for answering the audience's questions. And I think that we should all engage in a round of applause.
What an amazing, hello. Here I am. What an amazing student panel. Let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you so much for the students providing us with the much needed insight and honesty into what it means to be a student in 2024, and also reminding us why we need open education right now. As we bring this year's incredible Open Education Conference to a close, the board and I are filled with immense gratitude for the moments we shared over the past few days. It's an honor to speak with you today on behalf of the board, reflecting on all that we've experienced together. Our keynote speakers have given us powerful insights, reminding us of the knowledge we hold as a community and how much we can learn from each other. We are deeply appreciative of their words, which have highlighted the importance of open education and the work we are all doing.
We also extend our sincere thanks to all of our speakers and presentation. As someone who was stuck being a hybrid host in a certain room, I had no choice as to which presentations I was able to see. But for every presentation, I saw your passion and your expertise. And that with it, I have that have fueled enriching conversations and provided diverse perspectives that have shaped the dialogue of this conference. Your commitment to achieving open education has shone brightly through. None of this would have been possible without the efforts of our entire community. Your active participation and willingness to collaborate have been the driving force behind the successes we're celebrating here today. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this journey with me. I will now pass it to my fellow virtual board members, Rosario, Ash, Brandon, and April, to show appreciation to those who have made this conference possible. Thank you.
We would like it to take some time to thank everyone who made this conference possible. I give some special shout outs. This group's dedication, time, and expertise have brought this event to life, and we truly couldn't have done it without each one of you.
First and foremost, we'd like to say a very special thank you to our sponsors. This event would not be possible without their support. And we'd like to thank the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation in particular for their sustained level sponsorship. Also, in particular, we'd like to thank OpenStax and the Michelson 20 Million Minds Foundation for their Create level sponsorship. And finally, we'd like to thank all of you so much, all of our sponsors, for your support of OpenEd24, including ADAPT level sponsors, BC Campus, Pressbooks, and MIT OpenCourseWare. Your support has helped to make this a better conference, and we're so grateful for it.
The Program Selection Committee played a key role in shaping the heart of this conference. They were responsible for developing and managing the conference program, organizing tracks, session types, and guiding the proposal review process. Thank you. We also want to extend our gratitude to the proposal reviewers. Between the program committee and the reviewers, over 100 community members dedicated their time to the proposal review process. We also want to thank those who reviewed pre-recorded videos. Your insights and careful evaluation ensured a diverse and high-quality program. Thank you all for your contributions.
Our heartfelt thanks go out to our virtual session hosts. They served as technical operators and moderators, creating a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. Your presence made a huge difference in the virtual experience. We'd also like to thank our in-person volunteers, including hybrid hosts, session hosts, and those at the registration desk. Your support helped keep everything running smoothly, ensuring that attendees felt welcome and well supported throughout the event. And we want to give special thanks to our hybrid hosts who became tech pros overnight. Cassidy, Christina, and our fellow board members, Alita, Rachel, and Elizabeth.
Thank you to those local Providence and the New England region who supported us through the planning process. That includes the staff, the Omni Providence or technology provider, Pinnacle Live, Thomas Allen Production, based in videography and photography, the Providence Visitors Bureau, and the New England Board of Higher Education. We also want to recognize the incredible work of conference staff who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that everything runs smoothly, from logistics to technical support, your dedication and attention to detail keep this conference afloat, and we deeply appreciate your commitment.
And I would like to take a second to express my sincere gratitude to our board of directors who are joining us in person and virtually. Their leadership and their vision has guided this conference really from the start, helping us stay true to our mission and our purpose of what we're doing here today. And I just have to say that both online and virtually, they have both been working so hard. And I see them running around, and I've been seeing them in the virtual boardroom or virtual rooms as well. And we're so grateful for everything that they've done. So thank you for your ongoing support and for helping to make this a success.
Well, lastly, thank you to all of our wonderful attendees. Altogether, there were 1,500 participants, including nearly 400 in person and more than 1,000 online. Attendees come from over 60 countries, and it's what makes this so special, if I can say so myself, being from Australia. It's really the support of the community that allows us to do this year after year. Everyone, give yourself a round of applause for making this community so welcoming and wonderful.
And if you loved OpenEd24, consider being a part of the conference leadership. The board election process is beginning, and we're currently accepting self-nominations for director positions. If this interests you, please go to the Get Involved tab on our website and select Board Election to visit our election landing page and see more information. And before we close by announcing plans for next year, we would like to take one moment to hear some final thoughts from everyone. We will be using a platform called Mentimeter for the next part of this presentation. You can join Mentimeter by scanning the QR code on the screen or going to menti.com and entering the code 7962-3216. That is 7962-3216. I want to give everyone a few moments to join the Menti.
Oh, just a
It's
correction, that's
7862. Sorry, someone messed up the script. It was me.
7862-3216.
Okay, once we are there, we want to ask you, what is one word to describe your OpenEd24 experience? We are seeing different words. First, I can identify as inspiring and informative, exciting. Fun, yes, it was true, really, really fun. And community, empowered, refreshing, awesome, collaborative. Wow, there are a lot of words that I can read. Thank you very much.
And this year's theme is It's About Time. What is it about time for, from your opinion, though? We're excited to see some of your responses pop up on the screen. Honesty, equity, implementation. That's a good one. Open policy. Yes. Hope. A lot of great options coming through. Thank you so much, folks. Affordable learning. And over 200 responses. Thank you for being so engaged.
What's one thing you want to see more of next year? Okay, if you could share with us, what's one thing you might want to see more of at OpenEd25? Did I see breakfast received? Okay, more student voices. I see that. A better breakfast is still pretty big. Still want it hybrid again. Okay, received. Okay, so what's jumping out at me is still breakfast, more students, and hybrid. So that is duly noted. Thank you all so much for your feedback.
So if we get that breakfast bit sorted, will you be back next year? I love all the enthusiastic yeses immediately. Lots of absolutely. How can I say no? For sure. Already bought your flats, 5 of you. Wow. Do you secretly know where we're going to be? Okay, now for the very exciting bit. Please welcome Rachel Meisner and Chelsea Bowley to the stage.
Hey, Chelsea, we've been thinking about where to go in 2025. Providence has been amazing, so we'll have to go the extra mile next year.
An extra mile, huh? Ooh, how about going a mile higher next year?
A mile higher? Isn't Denver the Mile High City?
Denver is the Mile High City.
Join us in Denver, Colorado next year for the Open Education Conference.
Together, we'll go a mile higher for OER in 2025.
Woohoo! All right, after this will be a 15-minute break followed by a conference debrief. The conference debrief will involve informal breakout discussions to share what you learned, discuss next steps, and think ahead to next year. This debrief can be joined via Zoom or in the Narragansett Ballroom. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, if you're interested in attending one of the informal breakout sessions, just a note that they are moved to 2:50 p.m.